Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we really focus in on a specific set of sources.
Yeah, we dig deep to pull out the key insights for you, the listener.
Then hopefully uncover some of those connections you might miss otherwise. It's, a way to get up to speed efficiently.
So today we're plunging into the artist Bob Camblin, specifically looking at 1 year, 1965.
Right. And our sources, we've got excerpts from a retrospective look at his work, plus a really interesting document full of his quotes and reflections over the
It's a
years.
nice mix.
Exactly. So our mission, if you will, is to explore Camblin's world back in 65. What was he doing professionally? What art was he making?
And crucially, what ideas were starting to bubble up, things that maybe stuck with him.
Yeah, looking for those aha moments, connecting the dots between, say, an exhibition review and a personal reflection from later.
Okay, so 1965, it looks like a pretty pivotal year for him right off the bat.
It really does. Our sources point to a big career change that summer,
He moved from the University of Detroit Mercy.
all the way to the University of Utah. Became an assistant professor there.
That's a major shift. New city, Salt Lake City, new institution, a whole new environment.
Absolutely. And you have to think, a new environment that often sparks something in an artist, right?
For sure. And it seems he jumped right into the local art scene there. The records show him in 4 different exhibitions just in 1965.
4. Wow, okay. He wasn't wasting any time settling in.
Not at all.
Mm.
The first one we know about was in August at the Plum Tree Gallery, an exhibition called Windows.
Windows. Okay. And do we know how it was received?
We do, actually. We have a review from the Salt Lake Tribune for George Dibble.
Oh, brilliant. What did Dibble have to say?
Well, he called Camblin's works brilliant and perceptive studies. He mentioned the media ink, casein, wash, and collage.
So a mix of techniques there. Ink for lines, casein, paint, translucent washes, and then collage elements.
Exactly. Dibble really liked the Windows series itself, talking about sensitive statements of slices of windows.
Slices of windows. I like that phrasing.
Yeah, and he noted the style, graphic, fragile lines, supple washes, and luminous cross-hatching. Sounds quite delicate, maybe intimate.
Capturing glimpses, perhaps. But wasn't there something else mentioned in that review? Something a bit different.
Yes, you're right. Dibble also highlighted a, quote, particularly exciting series of skulls.
Skulls. Okay, that's quite a jump from windows.
It is. They were apparently part of a panel of small drawings with titles like The Wheel, The Birth of Venus, Carousel of Tour, and Dream of Zeus.
Wow. So classical mythological references mixed with skulls alongside these everyday window views.
It's a really interesting contrast, isn't it? Makes you wonder what he was exploring there. Mundane versus mythic? Life and death.
Could be. And the fact that Dibble found it exciting suggests it worked, at least for him, a good early reception in a new city.
Definitely seems like it. So that was the gallery show. What else was he up to?
While moving into the academic year, in October, he was in the art department faculty show at the university.
Ah, okay. Stepping into his faculty role.
Exactly. And the Tribune covered that too, mentioning him specifically as one of the new faculty members showing work.
Alongside Philip Hyde, photographer, I believe.
That's right. So he's being introduced formally, within the university community.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Engaging on multiple fronts. The gallery scene and the academic world.
Yeah, seems like he wanted to connect in different ways. And then, later in the year.
Yep. Another faculty exhibition.
Yeah.
This one was from mid-November through December, held at a place called the Movie Gallery, also in Salt Lake.
The Movie Gallery. Interesting name.
Isn't it? And he was exhibiting alongside some established names from the Utah faculty, Alvin Gittins, V. Douglas Snow,
Oh, wow. Gittins and Snow. Yeah, they were well-regarded figures.
Ed Marion, Earl Jones, Gertrude Twaish as well. So being included there really shows he was, integrating into that university art circle pretty quickly.
It paints a picture of someone actively embedding himself in the local scene within just a few months, really.
It does. And there's one more exhibition mentioned, though it's a bit geographically removed.
Oh,
Where was that?
in Canada, actually. The Art Gallery of Windsor at the University of Windsor in Ontario.
Huh. Any date for that one in 65?
The source doesn't give a specific date within the year, unfortunately, but its inclusion suggests his connections, or perhaps his reputation, already extended beyond Utah.
Right. Maybe ties from before the move or just recognition spreading.
Could be either. So, yeah, busy year externally. Big move, new job, 4 exhibitions, a lot of outward activity.
Definitely. But, our sources also give us a peek behind the curtain into his intellectual life around that time.
They do. And this is where things get really interesting, I think, in terms of understanding maybe what was underpinning some of that art.
What did you find?
The retrospective notes that sometime during 1965, Camblin read Michel Foucault's Madness and Civilization.
Wow. Okay, Madness and Civilization. That's not light reading.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Especially, when you're settling into a new job and city. For sure. For anyone listening who hasn't read it, Foucault's basically tracing how society, particularly in the West, defined and treated madness over centuries, how those definitions reflect power and control.
It's a foundational text in, well, in thinking about history, society, knowledge.
So the fact that Camblin is engaging with that book in that year of transition,
Yeah.
what does that suggest to you?
Well, it points to a deep intellectual curiosity, doesn't it? An interest in big ideas, how societies construct meaning, the boundaries of reason, maybe even questioning perception itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And you start to wonder, could reading Foucault have influenced how he was thinking about his own art?
It's hard not to speculate, right?
Like those slices of windows?
Huh?
Could that be tied to ideas about framing reality or, limiting perspectives?
Or the skulls juxtaposed with windows, maybe exploring the rational versus the irrational, or what society deems acceptable versus mad.
It's tempting to draw those lines. We can't know for sure, obviously, but the timing is incredibly suggestive. A mind clearly grappling with complex stuff.
Definitely. And that brings us to the other source, that collection of his quotes and reflections.
Right, gathered over many years. How do these later thoughts help us understand him back in 1965?
Well, they offer context. We see recurring themes, maybe trace how certain ideas developed. And crucially, there's one quote dated 1966 that looks directly back at his Salt Lake City experience.
Ah, okay, so a very close reflection. What did he say?
It's quite poetic, actually. He wrote, "A phoenix frozen in a salty shell, unable to burn itself to a new life."
Ooh, phoenix frozen in a salty shell.
Yeah, yeah. Trapped in that chrysalis of soda sand, baked, not burned by desert dryness, it waits with its eternal mineral egg for the hatching fire.
Wow. That paints a picture, doesn't it? The
Hmm.
salty shell, the soda sand, clearly the Utah desert landscape,
Mm-hmm.
but frozen, unable to burn, waiting for the hatching fire. It sounds like maybe that initial burst of activity, the exhibitions didn't necessarily mean he felt creatively ignited.
That's how it reads to me, too.
Yeah.
Like maybe there was a sense of potential, yes, but also stasis, or maybe a feeling of being in a kind of holding pattern artistically,
hmm
despite the external successes.
The eternal mineral egg, like the core creativity is there, but it's waiting for the right conditions to burst forth.
Exactly. It adds this whole other layer to 1965. Outwardly busy, maybe inwardly gestating.
Waiting.
Fascinating. Okay, so beyond that specific 1966 reflection, what other quotes from this collection seem to resonate with what we know about 1965 or the kinds of things he might have been thinking about?
Well, there are quite a few that touch on themes of perception, art, science, magic. Things that feel connected.
Like what?
There's one where he says, look into the atom, you get what you need. Look into magic, and you get what you need. Philosophy and art are in both.
Oh, I like that. Seeing science and magic or philosophy and art not as opposites but as related ways of knowing.
Yeah, it's just a really broad, curious mind, unwilling to stay in neat little boxes, which kind of fits with reading Foucault while making art, right? It does, seeking connections across different fields. What else?
This one's interesting. I will stick with common sense and try for the perfectly average view of the universe.
Perfectly average. That seems unusual for an artist.
Wait, there's more. He says, I think that will let me enjoy miracles on both sides of science and magic and the nuances of the smear between the whiteness and the blackness.
Ah, okay. So the average view isn't about being mundane. It's about finding a balanced perspective.
Seems like it. A way to appreciate the miracles on both sides, the nuances, the smear between extremes. He even hopes for an intensely bright gray when opposites meet.
Embracing complexity, ambiguity, that gray area. Again, that feels like someone who wouldn't accept simple answers, maybe influenced by thinking about societal constructs like Foucault did.
Potentially.
Ah.
And then there's this very short, cryptic one.
Yeah.
The sixth sense is to be, without a doubt, senza dubio. No doubt.
Senza dubio, without a doubt. Certainty. Intuition.
It's hard to say exactly, but it touches on that idea of conviction, maybe artistic intuition, or a kind of knowing that goes beyond just logic.
Which could connect to the creative process itself, that moment you know something is right in a piece.
Possibly. Or maybe a deeper philosophical stance. And another one expresses this sort of tension. Bright day and I soar, how cruel. that my soul is attached to this earth, and yet.
Oh, yeah, that feeling of aspiration versus limitation. The spirit wanting to fly, but being grounded.
It feels quite poignant, and maybe reflects some of that Phoenix Frozen feeling, too, that sense of potential or desire constrained by circumstance.
That makes sense. It seems like these quotes, even the later ones, keep circling back to perception, duality, the limits of understanding.
Absolutely. There's one from 1974, I cannot tell a lie to myself for very long, followed by find something in nature that completes you, and then surrender. Self-awareness and connection to nature.
And his view on art seems to evolve too, right? Didn't he say something about art for art's sake?
Yes. Art is not just images. Art for art's sake has become art for life's sake, or art for my sake, or art for survival's sake. A broadening sense of purpose for art.
From purely aesthetic to something more fundamental, more personal.
Exactly. And there are others about stepping off the train of thought, about balancing being for and against things, about the mind ripping out in flashes. It all suggests a very dynamic inner life.
A restless intellect. I remember seeing one mentioning Hilbert space.
Right. A concept from abstract mathematics.
Hmm.
Just shows the breadth of his interests.
And what about the quote specifically on perception and magic? Those seemed relevant too.
Definitely. He distinguishes between types of seeing. Magic for power is negative. Magic for seeing is positive.
Right.
Some seeing is magic, some seeing is intellectual. Intellectual seeing may lead to art. Magic seeing leads to understanding and also to art. This art is more as it is tied to the endless part of life.
Wow. So he's valuing this magic seeing, connecting it to deeper understanding and a more profound kind of art beyond just culture or intellect.
It seems so. It ties into other reflections too, like fool the eye, fool the mind, suggesting an awareness of illusion. And even his take on mistakes. There are no mistakes. Mistakes are nature's way of telling you to trust your instincts.
That feels very relevant to an artist learning through doing, trusting intuition.
Mm-hmm. And then there's this broader view connecting past, present, future, history. He says we're all here to dream of how it works.
A sense of shared human inquiry. And he talks about the artist's freedom too, doesn't he?
Yeah. The artist today is the only free agent. He is not committed except so much as he desires it. A strong statement on autonomy.
And finally, linking belief, perception, and art again. Religion, belief, my dose. If I believe in ghosts, I don't have to see one. If I believe it's art, then it is.
That really circles back to subjectivity, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The power of belief in shaping reality, or at least our experience of it. Perhaps echoes of the Foucault reading again.
It could well be. So putting all this together, the exhibitions, the move, the Foucault reading, these later, often intense reflections. What's the picture of Bob Camblin in 1965 that emerges for you?
Well, it's clearly a year of major transition, professionally and geographically. He's active, he's exhibiting, he's integrating into a new scene.
Right, the external view.
But beneath that, or alongside it, there's this intense intellectual and perhaps spiritual exploration happening. The Foucault reading is a huge clue there.
Suggesting he's asking fundamental questions about how we see the world, how society works.
Exactly. And the later quotes, especially that 1966 Frozen Phoenix one, add this layer of potential inner turmoil or creative gestation, even amidst the outward success. The reflections on perception, magic, science, art's purpose, they feel like themes he was likely wrestling with back then, too.
So it's not just an artist moving and showing work. It's an artist thinking deeply, questioning, maybe feeling a bit stuck creatively despite the activity, and laying the groundwork for ideas he'd explore for years.
That's how I see it. The connections between the reading, the art themes, windows versus skulls, and the later reflections feel quite strong when you look at them together. It makes 1965 seem incredibly rich and complex for him.
It really does. It shows how someone's intellectual life, the things they're reading and thinking about, can be running in parallel with and maybe subtly shaping their creative output and their experience of the world.
Absolutely. It's a great reminder that the inner life and the outer life are constantly interacting.
So thinking about Camblin then engaging with the art world, getting reviews, teaching, but also diving into Foucault, reflecting on being a frozen phoenix, it leads to a final thought for you, the listener. Consider your own life. How does your outward activity, your work, your projects, your daily doing relate to your inner world of thoughts, questions, readings, reflections?
Yeah, how might that thinking side be influencing the doing side, maybe in ways you haven't fully noticed?
Where do your outward actions and inner explorations meet? Something to ponder.
Definitely food for thought. And of course, there's always more to explore with an artist like Camblin.
Always. But for this deep dive, I think that gives us a fascinating glimpse into his 1965. Thanks for joining us.